All right, guys, welcome. Planet Hoops, another edition, another podcast. Today with me, I have Avneet Brar from Brarbasketball in Nanaimo, British Columbia. Welcome, Avneet.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Avneet is a guy that I first heard of when I was living in Souk with Coach Trevor Bly, which I know you know him.
Yeah.
He said, hey, there's this guy up in Nanaimo. He's doing great work, and he's training all these guys, and some of the guys from Souk are going to go up there and work with him, and he's going to come down here. And so I first heard about you there. We became Facebook friends, which is not really friends, but, you get to know someone a little bit. And then I met you a couple of weeks ago at the Canada-China game. Canada-China at Save on Foods. So, Avneet, tell me a little bit about your background, how you got started in playing basketball, coaching basketball. I know a little bit, but tell the viewers, because this is going to be interesting, your story, I believe.
Yeah, so basically I just, I went to elementary school in Nanaimo and moved here in grade 5 from Campbell River, and always liked hockey quite a bit. And started to like basketball, and then, grade 6 basketball is kind of where it starts in Nanaimo for elementary school. So I played grade 6 basketball, and at the time, Matt Kosminski, who's currently the V.I.U head coach that I worked for, was my head coach for grade 6. And then when it came to grade 7, my grade 7 teacher, Lisa Frey, she would always open the gym up for kids at lunchtime and after school to go ahead and shoot around. And I just kind of started like taking to basketball, and then grade 8 arrived, and the NHL went into a lockout, so hockey was no longer there, and that was after Calgary lost in the finals to Tampa Bay, and basketball was just the thing to do, and I was at Dover Bay, thankfully, which was a big basketball school, and yeah, that's kind of where it all began. I started playing on the team, and grade 8, grade 9, wasn't getting to play a lot, and then at the end of grade 9, I was encouraged to try coaching, and I gave it a whirl, and here we are.
Awesome. Well, who was the... one of the questions then is, we talked briefly earlier, your mentors. Who would you say got you going, got you started, got you falling in love with the coaching aspect?
I think all of the coaches that I've coached with have played a huge factor, but definitely Mark Simpson would be the guy that, he was running the program at Dover Bay and coaching the senior boys and said, hey, I think you should try coaching, and if you want to coach, here's the team that you could help out with. So I took a flyer on it, and I really had every opportunity to help and help out with different teams and improve myself as a coach by going out to different clinics. And anytime the gym was open, I tried to be there.
Okay, cool. And how many years now have you been coaching?
I think this is coming up on my 12th season coaching. My first couple of years I was more of a manager person than a full-on coach, but I did have some practice responsibilities, and as the years went on, my responsibilities grew and grew, and then I coached the junior boys at Dover Bay for 1 year in 2011 to 2012, and after that I've been at V.I.U since, coaching with them.
So you're not that old, so to be coaching or managing for 12 years, you would have got started pretty young. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was, I think, 14 or 15 at the time. I was, going into my grade 10 years when I started helping out with the team. I helped out with the grade 9 team. Then the following year, I was a grade 11 and helped out with the grade 10 team, so the same group of guys. And then as a grade 12, I helped out with the same team as they moved up, so the senior boys team, and that's my first official year that I spent with Mark Simpson on the bench.
I know that a lot of people think you have to have played at a high level to coach at a high level. I don't agree with that. I know that you wouldn't agree with that. I know that when I worked with Bruce Enns at UBC, he had coached for whatever, 35, 40 years, and I don't think he ever played basketball, and he became a university coach, and he's still involved with coaching and wheelchair basketball and everything. What are your thoughts on that for someone that may be watching who's a young aspiring coach?
I don't believe in the philosophy that you have had to have played. Obviously, if you have played at a high level, you've been immersed in an environment that would give you some tools to further your coaching. But I do think it's kind of like a clean slate. When you're done your playing career, you have to learn how to coach, and the earlier you can learn how to coach, the better. So I think I know there's a lot of people that say you have to have played, but I don't believe in that, and I think I would be one of the many cases of people that never really played that went on to really push and make a university job out of it or further.
Now, at V.I.U, which is Vancouver Island University. What are some of your duties as an assistant? What are you involved with? Recruiting, on-floor individual development? What kind of things do you do?
A lot of different things. I'm really thankful that Coach Matt Kosminski gives me a lot of different duties, and it's kind of a collective coaching culture where we all get to chip in. But my main thing would be I handle and I lead player development, especially throughout the summer months, where Coach Matt and I will chat about things that we think somebody needs to improve on and how to implement that, and then I just kind of roll with it from there. So that's group workouts in the mornings, individual workouts in the mornings, and these guys work jobs as well, so just kind of communicating and playing around their schedule. When the season starts, I do I have some input on kind of stuff that we run, but my main stuff that I do there is, continually developing the guys, finding how they can survive or succeed in our system, and also breaking down the upcoming opponents and scouting them out and knowing their play calls and tendencies and all of that.
How do you guys do that with, do you use software? Do you use just, iMovie? What kind of things? Because I know that the budgets are limited usually in Canadian colleges. What kind of video work do you guys do?
All the games are posted on Crossover. That's kind of our platform, for our league-wide platform for tape exchange. And then after that, I like to download it and put it into my iMovie. But I also have various charts that I use to scout different players and tendencies, and a little booklet that I keep every year where, if I've seen something of a player the first time, I put that in the booklet. And if, when I'm scouting them for the second time, I go back to that same page and add it. And it's really neat to see where some players that have played 2 or 3 years, you just see these tendencies hold true towards 2 or 3 years. So that's kind of a neat thing as well.
The little black book, hey?
Yeah. It's just like basically a portfolio, and it's all chicken scratch writing, but I can decipher it. So maybe if somebody stole it, would it be useful to them?
No, it's good. That's a good idea. I think a lot of times now as people do everything on computers, which I think is good, but, writing notes. I know that Stan Stewartson, who was my coach, he would write lists of things to do, not necessarily related to scouting or players, but he would write lists and he would scratch them off in circles when he was finished the list. And Jay Triano, to this day, still does that, apparently. He told a story heard him telling a story a few months ago saying that that's what I do. I copied from Stan. It's just on paper, right? And nobody does that. So something that once you have it on paper, it's pretty hard to lose that. So I think that's great that you're doing that, because that's unique, right? And not everybody does that. So cool.
Yeah, I used to write like upcoming player workouts on just like a napkin, like a Subway napkin that would be on like the coffee table. I'd write something down. But now I've kind of I like to just kind of write the workouts into my phone, and I have it. But I always try and have an idea of what I want to help the player develop on, and as on my drive into the gym, kind of am going through that. And I don't like to have like a kind of a cookie cutter program of this is how to improve your ball handling or this is how to improve your shooting. I think it's it is really personalized, and every player is different. So I try and have that same approach with my workouts as well.
Do you use video a lot? Do you videotape your players when they're doing the workouts to show them for feedback?
For some reps, I used to do that quite a bit a few years ago, and more so for showing stuff and teaching tools on social media. But as I've made an effort to be more involved in the workouts, so they're not always just 1-on-0, and they've got nobody to make reads against. I'm a little bit more involved, so it's harder to have my phone throughout workouts. The last thing I want to do is have my phone in my hand and a player run me over and crack my screen.
Of course. Where do you think you learned the most about these individual workouts and how to do it? I mean, there's so much information now on YouTube, and I mean, you can never run out of ideas. You go to clinics and all that, but you've been mentored by certain very knowledgeable coaches. Where would you say that you come up with these, or do you come up on your own with just making them up?
I've been fortunate enough to kind of go through different spells. Like I used to look at some player development videos, and those were useful. And then I would, used to go to clinics, but being on the island, there's not a lot of clinics nearby. That could always be tough. But I think the biggest factor for me would be just having spent time around Mark Simpson and an upbringing of a coach. And it wasn't necessarily just from a player development standpoint as well. It was, seeing him have an attention to detail to a very small thing. Maybe it's a play that a team runs, or maybe it's how we're running our offense. Looking at our if you're running a play, are you setting up your cut? Are you cutting to the basket? Are you getting to the right spot? Is your sequence of things that you're doing correct? And kind of taking that philosophy and building that into player development. If it's shooting a pull-up jump shot, looking at, do you have a good shot fake or jab, and are you sweeping the ball low, and does it look like you're going for a layup, and then are you getting into your pull-up? So just having I would call it a sequential approach to doing things, and he has that with coaching, and I've tried to adopt that as well and put my own twist on it. I don't think I have, a set style for workout. Some days we might do things that are very game specific, and some days we might be trying to add a skill, and some days we're just, some unorthodox stuff, just trying to work on touch or footwork for guys.
Cool. That's really good. Why would you say that you're so passionate about basketball? I know you kind of alluded to that a bit with your mentor and, growing up and the hockey and then basketball. What is it about the game that you love so much?
That's a really good question. I get asked that, and I always struggle to answer that right off the start because it just means so much to me. But the biggest thing I would say is just an opportunity to be around and improve. Like, especially as a coach, you're around in an environment with like-minded individuals that really want to get better. And I think that's a really cool environment and headspace to be around. And when you're around that enough, that just kind of takes over your thought process of the other 20 hours or so that you're not in the gym. And you just start to, it's almost like a craving. Like, you crave getting better if you're a player, and as a coach, you crave seeing your guys get better and help them get better. And it's just a really gratifying feeling. And I'm sure with all other sports and teams, the relationship side of it is big too. You coach a player, you see them develop, and whether you win or lose, you're still close with that player. And, towards the later years of their life as well, you hope to be close with them.
And you do work out a lot of players I've seen on your website. How do you seem to be good at networking? That's a thing that I've always told coaches, younger coaches, get good at networking, talk to lots of people, make friends, right? Build relationships. How do you go about, for example, going to the Canadian national team practice and then driving a couple of the NBA players to their restaurant downtown, that kind of thing? How do you meet these guys? How do you find your way in there?
Like you said, just through networking. I was fortunate that I spent time with Canada Basketball as a performance analyst when they were in Ontario with the U17 or all the way up from U15 to U18 program. So I have some affiliation with Canada Basketball there. And then when they practiced in Vancouver, the senior men's team did, I had chatted with Pasha Baines, who had put me in touch with the Ryerson head coach, Roy Rana. And through chatting with Roy, I was fortunate enough to get to go out to practice. And from driving the three guys around, it was basically, they were going in a different direction than the team was going. They weren't heading back to the hotel right away. They wanted to go out for dinner. So I was going the same direction, and we went together as opposed to them cabbing. That's
cool. And we'll get that link to that, to your Instagram as well as do you have a YouTube page?
I have a YouTube page for Brarbasketball, but it's more so just highlight videos of some of my future and former staff members. Okay. Well,
we'll get your underneath the video here. We'll get your Instagram link, as well as Brarbasketball, your website, which is it brarbasketball.com?
Yeah, .com. Yeah.
Okay. We'll get that on there as well. What advice would you have to young coaches, someone that's just starting out? Because I remember when I started, I was in university. After my first year, we had a high school camp, like an invitational elite camp, and as a first year player, they bring all the players in to help coach. Fell in love with it, and then I always kind of worked the summer camps every summer, and then because I love traveling, I ended up going overseas and all that stuff. And I would always say, if you're going to be a good coach, if you're going to fall in love with the game, you've just got to immerse yourself in it, and you've got to learn as much as you can. Like you've mentioned earlier, never stop learning, be around smarter coaches than you, be mentored, all that thing. What would your advice be?
Yeah, and I would agree with a lot of the sentiments that you had. When I first started coaching at Dover, for instance, in the summers, the gym would be open from like 10 a.m. to noon every single day, and there would be some skill development done, and then guys would scrimmage, then they'd go lift weights, and I would just be around. I would just go every day as a young coach to watch, and sit there on the stage and chat with Coach Simpson as we're watching the scrimmages, or as he's running a player development workout, I would just help out. And I just really like to be there every day. And that was just a habit to go every day. If I can and my players are lifting weights at V.I.U. and I have a free time, I'll like to go and just hang out and chat it up with the guys, but also just be a part of their journey towards improving and, work towards developing an understanding of how the things they're doing in the weight room can directly correlate to on the court. And that's a lot of the purpose of lifting weights for a specific sport. And the big thing I always tell young coaches is show up when it's inconvenient. Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of coaches is, and coaching is, and I really respect all the high school coaches that give up their summers and give up their weekends and their free time to show up and help these kids when it's not really convenient for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what coaching is. You're not there for yourself, you're there for somebody else. And if it's inconvenient for you, but it's beneficial for them, you're there for them. And I think that's something that I try and remind myself of daily and think through. And, how fortunate am I to be a young guy coaching university basketball at a school that has done well, and in a job situation where I get to have an impact with young athletes.
Especially in Canada, because the money is not the greatest in Canada, especially for assistant coaches. I know even head coaches don't make that much in the CCA. I don't know what it's called now, CCAA or. CCAA, yeah. And so you have to find ways, like you're doing with your Brarbasketball, doing workouts and all that stuff. So it is very fortunate that you can make a living at it, right? I mean, we're all grateful when we can do something like that we love. What would you say to players, if you had advice to young players that want to move up the ladder? Is it similar to your coaching advice?
Yeah, somewhat. It's funny you say that. The other day I had a blog post called "Are You Not Entertained?" and it was kind of there was 3 components to it. Just to it kind of addressed 3 things. The first part would be to the players is don't become bored by doing a lot of the same things every day. One of my coaching philosophy is the things that happen the most in a game are the things that we're going to work on the most in our development. Mm-hmm. Driving the ball in a straight line, passing the ball to the correct spot, spacing, cutting, being able to make shots. Those are going to happen quite prominently in a game, and we're going to work on those quite a bit. And, maybe the step back jump shot, or the very tough up and under finishes happens maybe 2 times in a game. Mm-hmm. We'll spend a small percentage of our time working on that, but we won't spend a majority of time working on that. And, the worst thing that you can do in a game, late in the game in a fourth quarter, is turn the ball over by traveling or not passing crisply, and we work on that quite a bit as well. Mm-hmm. And it also addressed to the coaches' side, where coaches need to become comfortable and, trusting enough in what they teach and how they teach to not feel pressure to always progress the workouts. You can come in and work with a player on jabbing and faking and doing a nice fundamental layup every single day. There's no pressure to feel like you have to spice it up or change it up because you think that the player is bored. Mm-hmm. Third component was to the parent side of it, where they're enrolling their kids or funding for their kids or paying for their kids to be somewhere that just because it's very flashy doesn't mean that that's what you should be drawn to. Just Drew Hanlon always talks about real game results, or results speak, and I think that's a really good mantra to have towards improving. Mm-hmm.
It's very competitive, right? Now, when I grew up, there wasn't as much basketball being played compared to today. Mm-hmm. There's more coaching, there's more facilities, mm-hmm. there's more leagues with the AAU and all that in the summertime here. We never used to have that. And I think one thing, though, still holds true is you got to be committed and you got to put in the time, right? If you're not putting in the time, for players, same with coaches, but if you're not putting in the time, getting better every day, then you're not going to reach your potential and you're not going to be able to play at a high level, right? Mm-hmm. There are more opportunities. There's way more teams now with CCAA and CIS, and there never used to be that many teams. But I would say that, it's I mean, I see the kids working. They're working hard. You got the guys that are working with you, and I don't know how many other coaches around BC and all across Canada now are doing it. But and the rewards are high if you can make a high level, and you can also see way more Canadian guys making it to high levels. What do you think is changing across Canada to allow that to happen? Is it more coaching, better coaching?
I think accessibility is becoming a big thing as well. Like you said, there's more gyms, there's more opportunities to play. That's a big thing as well. And, it's just basketball is a team sport where you can do a ton of things on your own in terms of your development. You can go shoot, you can go dribble, you can go pass, play one-on-one. Sorry, I'm buzzing here.
That's okay. You got to go soon?
No, we're
okay.
good.
Okay.
Somebody just leaving a voicemail.
Okay.
But you can do a lot of things on your own. And the big thing I tell players too is if there's a school that you want to go to, maybe have a look at the style that they play. For instance, if you dribble a lot and you can score with your AAU team, but the team that you want to do that, for instance, if it's Carleton University and they don't do that, then you may either want to tailor your game to the school that you want to go to, or that may not be the best fit for you. And I think a lot of players have this situation coming out of high school where they do things that they're really good at, but that's not what the school that they want to go to or the school that's recruiting them wants of them. And, they'll either won't go there or they'll go there and promise to change and they don't, and then they transfer.
Yeah.
Or it just doesn't work out, or they go there and they change and it works out well. But I think the player has to be willing to do what's required of them. And I was chatting with a parent about this yesterday, that if you go to a university institution and you do what's required by them for 5 years, you're going to end up having a pretty good career. A lot of schools, it's the same thing. Get in the gym and make shots. Get in the gym and lift weights. Play the right way, and by right way, it's there's no one right way, but to the style or philosophies that they have with their team, and try and follow those. I mean, I watched our guys scrimmage last night, and they are rapidly progressing in the style that we would like them to play. It's a little bit of a struggle at the start of summer where they play one way and then they revert back to their old ways, and they play and then they revert back, but just have to keep hammering away at it. And I think as coaches, it's our job to uphold the style that we would like to play and also pull out our players' best strengths that they have.
Yeah, that's good. Here's a question that I just thought of. I didn't give you on the list that we talked about yesterday. I don't know if you follow it, but basketball in India. Are you? I mean, I think they've made great strides. There's so many people there, like in China. I know that it's growing there. There's lots of academies springing up. What's your knowledge about basketball in India and internationally, how they're progressing? Because I'm not really that sure myself, but and I don't know if you have any contacts there, but what do you know about that?
I don't have any set contacts there. I know former CCAA player Inderberg Gill that went to University of Northern British Columbia, now playing in the FIBA 3-on-3s, but he would go back with NBA's outreach program and work some camps there. So it is growing, and there's some enthusiasm behind it. I know funding, I'm sure with a lot of different countries, is an issue. And, my firm belief is that there's always funding. It's just a matter of what it's allocated to. You could have $1 million, but all the $1 million could go to field hockey or soccer. I think until there's some good players in the upbringing and the funding is there to support those athletes along the way. And I think a lot of other countries have the same thing, the same struggles, and India may struggle at the basketball level until that funding arrives.
I think that's what happened in Canada previously as well in the 80s and 90s. We had good teams, but the funding wasn't there like it probably is now with corporate sponsorship and just the popularity of the game and NBA players. Now, I don't know how many NBA players in the league are from Canada, but it's a lot more than there ever used to be. So do you have any idea how many are from Canada in the NBA?
Canada, I think there might be upwards of 14.
I think it's the second highest after the USA internationally, I think. I'm not sure.
Actually, there would be more than 14. But, and the other thing, too, is the coaches that are leading development, how long are they staying there? If there's a coach in India that starts an academy and then is offered a Division I job, does he leave? I had a chance last week to chat with Jeff Van Gundy for quite a bit of time and spend some time with him. And, a big thing he talked about, and I've heard other coaches talk about, is be really good at the job that you're at first. And you can explore your opportunities, but don't just jump ship right away before you're really good at where you're at. And people may find that in a basketball situation, they by transferring, or coaches by leaving jobs, or people in the general workforce, they get into a job and they feel they're better than they are, or they feel they deserve more, and they jump ship right away, and then the next situation may not work out for them. Mm. So just, really immersing yourself and trying to be good at where you're at before you look to move on.
Speaking of that, I know you were at the NBA Summer League, making contacts again, networking. I saw you the Instagram. You can see some of the photos when you check it out, people. Any other people that you talked to that gave you some good advice down there?
Yeah, I got to spend a little bit of time around the Spurs, which is always great. Ettore Messina and Chip England, and chatting with those guys and what they look for in development and how they believe in development. And Chip England is around the league said to be one of the best shooting coaches in the world, so that's great to chat with him. I did see Coach Jay Triano down there as well. He's just taken over as the lead assistant or the associate head coach with the Charlotte Hornets, so chatting with him. And Jay Hernandez, who is a player development guy that has moved his way up. He was with the Orlando Magic as an assistant coach, and now has went over to the Hornets as an assistant coach, who will specialize in player development and some scouting. And he head coached the Charlotte Hornets Summer League this year. Fantastic.
No, that just shows you any young coaches that are watching, get amongst these coaches if you can. They're very nice people. They're open to talk and share freely, as you saw. Yeah. That's one thing about coaches is they don't want to keep secrets. They want to share information, and that's how the game grows. So if you're watching and you're a young coach, do whatever you can or whatever you have to do to get around people with more knowledge than you. Last question, Avneet. What are some of your future goals, aspirations as a coach? Where would you like to be in maybe 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I really like where I'm at locally right now, and it's not just, I wouldn't say it's speaking to complacency. I just have a chance to make a difference and help develop some youth athletes and work with university athletes. And the game has become, like you said, and we talked about, so accessible that I have opportunities to travel away and then come back to a home base per se. Obviously the NBA job is always the dream goal, and working with the NBA in some capacity. And, I've worked really hard to move my way up towards that level. And I do feel like I'm close, hopefully within the next 5 years. But like we chatted about, a lot of these coaches are accessible, especially at the Summer League, but it's all about the steps and the procedure you follow to interact with them. You can't just walk up to the head coach and say, hey, I want to come to practice or work for you. That's not really the appropriate approach. I've been fortunate to have some networks that are assistant coaches or player development leads with different teams, with the LA Clippers and the San Antonio Spurs, and chatting with them and saying, hey, I love what you do. I'd like to chat a little bit more. And then after some time saying, hey, I'm going to be in town where you guys are at. Do you mind if I come watch practice and just be a fly on the wall? And before you know it, you'll be out there as a rebounder, and they might ask you for your input, and then you might work your way up into being a staff member.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. So last word, any last words before we go?
Just for coaches and players, like we've echoed it before, just, work towards being really good at what you do. And every day is an opportunity. You never know where you'll be seen. Just the last story here, when I was in Vegas, I chatted with the Washington Mystics, WNBA, their head of player development, Sefu Bernard. And I asked him, I said, how did you get on with the Mystics? He was working with Canada Basketball and working with the Raptors a little bit. And he said that he ran a basketball clinic for PGC, Point Guard College. Yep. And I believe it was a GM of the Connecticut Sun. He had enrolled his daughter in camp. And, Sefu coached his daughter, and he watched and he said, hey, this guy's really passionate and he's really good at what he's doing. So eventually there was a conversation towards having him work with the Sun, and he moved over, I believe, to the Mystics, and Sefu had went with him. So he works the Washington Mystics now.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's really, you just never know, right? You never know. Anyway, Avneet Brar, Brarbasketball. We'll get the website underneath there. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope that you have a great weekend, and keep working hard. And thank you for sharing. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. A lot of fun. And if anybody has any questions, I'm always happy to help out. They can email me at brarbasketball@gmail.com, or they can contact me through my Instagram and follow my page to keep up. And hey, maybe we'll be in the same city at the same time or somewhere close and we can link up.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day, Avneet. Take care.
All right. Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye.